Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. In Genesis chapter 12, we see a shift in what God is doing. You know, God had been working in the human race. God had been working in the descendants of Adam and Eve. But in Genesis chapter 12, it now narrows down to one man and his family and his descendants. And that man is the father of the faith. It's Abraham. And Abraham receives this call from God. He's got to leave Ur of the Chaldeans. He's got to go to Canaan. God says, I've got a promised land for you, a land flowing with milk and honey. He goes there. He's a migrant. He lives in a tent, but he had a vision for a city whose builder and maker was God. And he's promised that this land is going to be his. He's promised that he's going to have descendants. He's promised that he's going to be a blessing to others. But then in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, all these promises are just turbocharged, because it says, all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. And now the promises that God was giving to this man, Abraham, are now centered on another man, a man who would be fully human, but also would be fully God. And that was one of his descendants who was to come, because through one of his descendants, all peoples on earth were going to be blessed. Now, of course, Abraham had so many wonderful descendants, Jacob, Isaac, Joseph, Moses, David, Isaiah, Elijah. These were all descendants of Abraham. But there's only one descendant that it can truly be said that through him, all the nations on earth are going to be blessed. And that, of course, is Jesus. Jesus is the one that all these promises now zero in on. Because Jesus, again, the book of Genesis is primarily not about Adam and Eve. It's not about Abraham. The book of Genesis is not about Joseph or the 12 tribes of Israel. The book of Genesis is about Jesus. Jesus is at the center of the Old Testament, and Jesus was the descendant of Abraham's through whom all the nations of the earth were going to be blessed. I've traveled around this world. I've traveled in many different continents, many different countries. I've met so many different kinds of people, encountered so many different cultures, so many different kinds of food. But I've yet to find any nation or any culture or any people or any tribe that will not be blessed by Jesus, because Jesus brings blessing to all the peoples on the earth. And, I think back to that first Easter Sunday when Jesus was on that road to Emmaus, and he's talking with those two disciples, and he's opening up all the scriptures, and he says to them, you remember in the book of Genesis where God said to Abraham, through you, all peoples on earth will be blessed through you? And those two guys are going, yeah, we remember that, yeah. And Jesus says, and that was talking about me. Jesus is the one. That's why we as Christians, we need to pray for the nations. That's why we as Christians need to do what we can to support missions outreach to the nations. That's why we as Christians should welcome people from other nations when they come to our land, so we can receive them and so we can share the good news of Jesus with them. Because this is why God created the nations. God created the nations for one specific purpose, that they could encounter Jesus, because Jesus is the one that Genesis is all about, and Jesus is the one of whom the word says when God spoke to Abraham, Genesis 12:3, all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. I'm so glad that the nation of Ireland is blessed through Jesus. I'm glad that through that blessing upon the nations of Ireland, I am blessed through the name of Jesus. And today we give him glory because he is the King of the earth. Join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.